What's up, y'all? This is the Thug Lord Tupac. Be sure to check out Westside Radio.
Y'all know him. He does a great podcast, Roadium Radio. In the house, Tony A. the Wizard.
Julio G, thank you for having me, brother. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. Congratulations on everything you've been doing, man, because you've been
thank you.
You've been very active doing your thing, man.
Like I told you earlier, I started off with 238 subscribers. I didn't know anybody was going to watch. 114,000 subscribers later, 5 years later, I'm kind of getting burnt out a little bit of the podcasting.
It's a lot, 5 years is a long time. I want to ask you, Tony, I always ask people about the name. I know you as Tony A, but when you added like the Wizard on it, like where did that come about?
Right. Okay. Well, I'll tell you how I got the Tony A first.
Okay.
I was in 4th grade, and I believe that my teacher name was Miss Moore. And we had 4 Tonys in there. We had Tony A, Tony B, Tony M, and Tony O. And every time she would say, Tony, all Tonys would turn around. So from there on, okay, you're Tony A, you're Tony, because of my last name, Alvarez.
Okay.
So skipping ahead, Steve Yano, when I started doing the mixtapes for him at the Roadium Swap Meet, told me, you need a better name than just Tony. And I said, well, my teacher used to call me Tony A. That's kind of what I started doing coming up as a DJ. He goes, something needs to be better. So he calls me one day and he goes, you ready? And I was like, what is it? And he said, TT Wizard. And I was like, what the hell is that? He goes, the Turntable Wizard. And I was like, okay, but why wizard? Like, I wanted to know. And he goes, because you're fast on the turntables. And I was like, are wizards fast? Like, I go, okay, Steve, we're good. Tony A. the Wizard. But he added the TT, Turntable Wizard.
Okay.
But I just said, Tony A. the Wizard.
I didn't know that, Tony. I always just knew you as Tony A. I didn't know that. I thought that came out with the podcast. So you've been saying Tony A. the Wizard.
Yes, since 1987.
Oh, wow. Well, I didn't catch that, man. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. What was your early, like, what got you into DJing? Really into music? Because,
yes.
You were into music, of course, but in DJing came. But what got you into music?
It was when I first heard, I remember, again, going back to the 4th grade, I was doing really lousy in school, but my brother told me, if you start doing good in school, I'll buy you records. He used to work at Zodi's. Remember Zodi's?
Yeah.
And my very first album, because I heard this on the radio, Kiss Love Gun album.
Okay, yeah.
I was a big fan of Kiss, so that was my first album.
Everybody was, yeah.
Yeah, so and then after that, I continued to do good. He bought me my next album, which was Blondie. And that's how I got started with the whole getting into music.
Right. What brought the DJing part in where you decided, like, I want to become a DJ?
I'm going to share this, and I've never shared this story before. There was a guy in the neighborhood. I never met him, but his tapes were traveling, and his name was Casper the Mix Master. And everybody had his tapes. This was a mixtape. Later on, I found out that he was actually mixing mix records. Remember, like Mix Tricks, Scratch Dance?
Yeah, the Scratch Dance, yeah.
Obviously, he had them first. So he would put us on mixtapes, and I thought he was doing that. So one of my friends let me borrow it, and I was probably in 6th grade. And I was like, what the hell is that? Because I would hear, and I was like, what the hell is that? 7th grade now, one of my friends, rest in peace, Nathan Gale, tells me, do you know what scratching is? And I said, I've never heard of scratching. And so I'm thinking automatically, you're doing this to the record. You're scratching it.
Right.
And he said, no, I have a record by Grandmaster Flash. And I said, well, I know Grandmaster Flash, in the Furious 5. So he brought me the 12-inch, and it was Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that home, and I heard, it's a. And I was thinking, what the hell is that? Then he's scratching, good times.
Yeah.
And then, Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
And I had all those records at home. So I thought I could try to emulate that. So I was just going back and forth, not knowing I was scratching the bottom of the record because I had no scratch pad. And I realized what he was doing. So Grandmaster Flash is really who introduced me to scratching on vinyl.
And which that record was just, everybody loved that record. The way he put it together and everything was so innovative at that time.
Correct.
It sounds like people hear it today, maybe they wouldn't understand it, but at the time, that was, nobody had really, like you said, and even going all the way into the Queen record, the way he flipped that, and it was dope. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It was dope, like Grandmaster Flash. Mad props to Grandmaster Flash. What were some of the inspirations, though, besides Grandmaster Flash? Like, because you're from LA, so
yes.
Like, what inspired you from LA, like the LA DJs?
Well, a lot of people may not know, and I never shared this story, or at least part of the story. Steve Yano, rest in peace, gave me my first job at 11 years old selling records for the Vermont Swap Meet in the city of Gardena. So he gave me my first job, and he had a guy DJing there. He had 2 turntables, but the guy was only blending going back and forth. Now, here's what inspired me, and I have to give this man his credit. My brother, who was also a DJ, the one above me, my brother Mario, rest in peace, he used to buy records not only from Steve Yano at the Vermont, but also VIP records from Kelvin Anderson and Cletus, rest in peace, from VIP in Long Beach.
Long Beach, yeah.
Okay, and one day he took me, and there was a guy up there, and he was scratching sucker MCs. Dum, 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 dum. And I was blown away because that's the first time I ever seen a DJ scratch in person.
In person, yeah.
So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey man, you know, what's your name?" And he said, "They call me King Tim." And from there, believe
hooked.
it or not, that's what changed my life, man.
You were hooked, yeah.
Yeah. And if I could share this story, this is the third DJ that I ever saw scratch. Guy with a big ass afro, had like a Run DMC hat, wearing all black. My brother's DJing at a club in Long Beach called Grand Central Station. Yeah. This guy comes in and he says, "Hey man, ask the DJ if I can spin." You know, for people that may not know, that's let me DJ, or, you know. So my brother, I remember, had to go use the restroom. And he said, "Well, I need a breaker anyway, somebody to give him a break." He went up there and he said, "Tell my brother to give you whatever you need. He knows all my records." The guy said, "Give me 2 Let's Work by Prince." And I said, "Why do you need 2? And he said, "Oh, because I'm going to go back and forth." He turned down the music and he put it in the middle of the record, where of the 12-inch of Let's Work, where it says, "Work it." And he started cutting that up. "Work it, get. And that was how I got introduced to DJ Joe Cooley.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and he used to kill Let's Work.
Bro, that guy became my mentor ever since then.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
So
mad props to Joe Cooley. No, mad props to Joe Cooley. I want to ask you how you said you started working at the Swap Meet with Steve Yano.
Yeah, well, let me tell you the story about that. Okay, there was a guy, I have to back up the reason why I have to share this story. There's a guy that came in a movie called Breaking. Everybody knows him as Turbo. I knew him as Michael Chambers or Boogaloo Shrimp. Okay. That's what we called them in Wilmington.
He's originally from Wilmington.
Yes.
Okay.
And so is Coco, the little Mexican kid, in Breaking as well.
Yeah.
So Michael Chambers from the east side, Coco's from the west side. I hung out with him and he taught me how to pop one summer. He's the reason why I learned how to pop was Boogaloo Shrimp.
Really?
Yes.
You were taught by Boogaloo Shrimp. Wow, that's mind-blowing, bro.
Julio, I'm going to tell you this, man. I've been blessed because I truly do believe, I'm not a very religious person, but I do believe in God, and I do believe God has put people in my life to bless me. And I believe these are some of the people.
Yeah.
So he taught me how to pop. So one day, my brother tells me, "Come with me. I want you to go with me to buy some records. I'm going to some guy named Steve Llanos." I said, "Okay." It's the first time I met Steve. So Steve plays Wicca Rap, remember, by the Invasions?
The Invasions, yeah.
I just start popping. And a crowd comes. So Steve Yano tells me, "Hey, man, come here. He goes, do you want a job?" And I was like, "What do I do?" He goes, "Can you pick up one of those crates?" Now, he didn't have crates. Steve Yano used wooden crates that he made himself.
Okay.
So I picked it up, and he said, "I'll give you $20 to work Saturday and Sunday." And I was thinking video games, Donkey Kong, asteroids.
Of course.
So I start the following week, but I knew what he was doing because he goes, "Hey, so show me some of those moves. Stand right there." And I was drawing the crowd.
Yeah.
So I worked with them for a couple of years, and then the Vermont Swap Meet started dying off. So he said, "We're going to go to the Roadium. Can you come?" And I said, "Nah, my mom sells here. Like, I can't get a ride over there." So he left, and I didn't see him again till I was 18. Yeah, so from 13 to 18, I didn't see him.
Wow. So you like reconnected with him, and that's how the Roadium came about. Oh, I did not know that. Wow.
Yes. It was funny because, let me share this. Some guy had a mixtape, and he played it for me, and he said, "This is Dr. Dre here at the Roadium Swap Meet with my main man, Steve, and I'm about to cold tear shit up." So I'm thinking Dr. Dre, world-class wrecking crew, which I idolize because of surgery.
Yeah, for sure.
Then I'm thinking, Steve, the Roadium, how does Steve know? Is that him? So I asked my boy Angel, let me give a shout out to my boy Angel for taking me. I said, "Take me to the Roadium, bro. I think Steve knows Dr. Dre." So we go, and I don't think Steve's going to recognize me because it's been several years.
Yeah.
I get there, and standing right behind him is Dre. Okay, the first time I went, and Steve looks at me, he goes, "Hey, Tony, what's going on?" And I was like, you remember me? And he's like, "Yeah." So he goes, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "I DJ now." "You DJ, you spin?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I got 2 turntables and a mixer right there." I said, "Okay." And he had the Newmark, had the Techniques. And of course, I took out It's Time, and I started cutting it up. Dr. Dre tapped me in the shoulder, and he says, "Hey, man, that was pretty dope." He said, "My nephew right here, my cousin right here is producing a record for Calvin Anderson from the VIP Records. They're coming out with their own record label. It's called Thin Line Records. he needs some scratching on there. Why don't you do it? And that he introduced me to Sir Jinx.
Oh, wow.
You know, I always tell people that I met Dre in the movie Straight Outta Compton when Dre went to go live with Jinx. That's when I met him because he was living with Jinx. He had just moved in.
Okay.
And then Dre goes, and that's Eric. And I didn't know that was Eazy. And that's how I met them. And from there, I just started going to Jinx's house. And I would always see Dre there. And Steve was doing some of the mixtapes there before he handed them over to me.
Okay.
So
how did that happen? How did you end up like becoming, you know, the DJ that's doing these mixtapes for Steve at the time? Because Dre was doing some stuff with him, but you ended up kind of like...
Well, I was very blessed and fortunate to be at the right place at the right time. Dre was doing a mixtape called In Effect. And he was rapping over Still Number One by KRS. And he would say, like, Toddy T and Spade, they're down with us. And I remember he looked at me and he said, Tony A. the Wizard is down with us. Bro, and I got goosebumps, bro, when he fucking said that. Like, I was like, holy shit. So he comes up to me and he goes, hey, man, I'm going to get busy knocking out these records. He says, but I want you to take over and do these mixtapes.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, even though he had 2 turntables and I saw the Tascam Porta 1 4-track, I was still thinking, but aren't you doing them with 4 turntables, you know? And he was like, Steve would show you how to do them. And I said, really? He goes, we'll still rap on them. I just can't do them anymore. I was like, okay. So the first one I did, 1987, I think it was called Breakdown, the very first mixtape that I did.
Okay.
Steve came over from Whittier and showed me how he did the mixtapes. And I kept telling him, I don't have 4 turntables. And he said, you don't need 4 turntables. We're going to do it with this. And it was the 4-track. So he would say, hey, I'm going to call Dre. Well, I'm going to page Dre and tell him to come over. So Dre would come, listen to it. He would rap. Eazy would come. Cube would come.
That's how you got them on there, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
And I want to say this, okay? I'm a very humble person. I always give credit where credit is due. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for Steve.
When you did these mixtapes, though, where did you record these things at? Like, where was the actual recording going on at?
Oh, at my house, in my bedroom. Yes. And Steve would name the mixtapes after whatever was going on. Like, I'll give you a story. I don't know if I've ever shared this before. Whenever we would play back the mixes, that, you know, I would want to turn it up. I want to feel it. So my dad comes knocking on my damn door, rest in peace. Boom, 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 boom. And so I go open the door and he goes, what? And he goes, bájale esa pinche música. He turned down the music. He says, or I'm going to drag that dude out of here. He was talking about Steve. And I was like, okay. He goes, bájale el boom. Okay, that's what he said. Turn down the boom.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And Steve goes, what's el boom? And I go, you know, the boom, boom. Steve goes home and he calls me and he says, hey, I know what the mixtape's going to be called. 88 Boom and Bass. That's what he called it.
I want to go back to something that you were talking about. You were talking about Booaloo Shrimp. I don't know why I thought he was from Carson. He's from Wilmington.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, first of all, I got to say mad respect to Booaloo Shrimp because as a kid, I started as a dancer first.
Yes.
And I did locking when we were young, popping, break, and eventually got to breakdancing. But I used to, when I had a chance, I would go follow them around. And I would go want to see him because he was incredible to see, like live, bro. I mean, you know, because you said you've been around him and you watched him pop. I mean, to watch him in the movie Breaking is one thing, but to go see him, like, I'll never forget this one night. I begged my friends. I was young too, but I was not old enough to be at no club. Yeah. But my friends that were a couple years older than me, so they had a car. I was like, man, bro, can you please, man? I gotta go see Booaloo Shrimp. He's gonna be at Kennedy Hall in East LA off Whittier Boulevard. I think it's Whittier Boulevard. No, I think it's Atlantic, I think. But it's Kennedy Hall. He used to go run around with a guy named Hector, and they were called Fancy Dancers. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I remember that.
Yeah, they were Fancy Dancers, and they won that contest. It was, you know, they took the whole dance. Everybody was out, you know, the whole dance floor was wide open, and they won. I mean, they did such an incredible. It was incredible to watch the guy. I mean, it was him and Poppin' Taco. Yes. When I got to see him a couple times, it was just I wish I had a camera like to capture just. You know, I always stay in my head what I seen, but it was just an incredible time for dancing on the West Coast. And I don't think a lot of people salute these guys. They were instrumental also in our upcoming of the West Coast, which was the dancing part to the music. So mad respect to Booaloo Shrimp, Shabadoo, rest in peace, and Poppin' Taco, rest in peace, and the whole crew, Poppin' Pete, everybody, man. They were incredible, man. I want to ask you this, Tony, like coming up from that time and era, you know, being Mexican, it wasn't like popular to do hip hop. No. It wasn't like a lot of us. It was only like a handful of us that were doing it. And we were like immersed in this, what you would say, a black culture, I guess. You know what I mean? In that sense. How was that for you? Did that ever come up? Was it ever anything about that? Because, like I said, we were kind of like a few of us, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, I was DJing for Sir Jinx, and he produced a record for Dazzy D. And I was DJing for them, and the majority of the events that we did were predominantly black.
At that time, basically, everything we did,
Yes. I would say this, that I would walk in, and I was kind of like the oddball. And nobody would really talk to me. But where I got my respect was when I stepped on the turntables. Mm-hmm. Then I got my respect through the turntables.
Right.
Whenever I would go to Audio Achievements, and I was there with Dre, with Eazy, with Cube, or Yella, I'll be honest with you, they never treated me like an outsider. They didn't look at me like if he's a non-black. It was all love, man.
Yeah.
When I hung around with Hi-C, DJ Quik, Second N None AMG, it was all love. Now, when we went on the road with them in 1991 with Quik and those guys, and I was DJing for them, I had to earn my respect because everywhere we went was predominantly black. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm the only, if I could say it this way, white guy there. I had to earn my respect on the turntables, and that's how people gave me my respect, actually.
And it's funny you say that, because that's kind of my introduction to it too. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
People would see like, who's this dude? I don't want to say it in a bad, make it sound a bad way, because it's crazy, because we're in a different time today. So it's just like everything's so touchy nowadays. People take things the wrong way, but it's not a bad thing. But it was very black. So it was like me and Tony would walk into a dance. I mean, it was us two and the other guy that's maybe one or two that are working there or whatever. So it wasn't like, but it was never like no racial thing. It was just like, it was about hip hop. So when they seen you get busy, that was the whole thing. That's what I loved about hip hop back then, because it was really about your talent. Nobody cared what color you were. If you were just dope, and then you could be black and whack.
Yes, absolutely.
And you get clowned too. It didn't matter.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's what I loved about it. It was like being at the Apollo. Like, you get booed off, they don't matter who you are. So
absolutely.
That's where, like I said, same thing for me. Is like coming in, I never experienced anything like towards me about me being Hispanic. It was more about, oh damn, this dude is dope. That's what I was wondering with you, because you're one of the early guys in hip hop. Was like Johnny J, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
He was early in the game, you know what I mean? Tony G, Julio G, Tony A, you know what I mean? Kid Frost and a couple other people. So it wasn't like a big group of us doing it at the time. We were opening the doors, back then, basically. I want to ask you this, because I know you ran with a lot of these guys. How was it running with like Quik and all those guys at the time? Because like you're rolling with like some Pyrus, bro.
Right.
And back then, it wasn't like Pyrus were popular. Not like today, like you see, a lot of Bloods and this, and it's more popularized, I guess I would say. Back then, it was like, to be a Pyru and a Blood was like, it was a small little group, so they had to really go extra.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
How did you function with that, all these guys? Because I know they had to be getting into things.
Right.
It just, it is what it is. They're from Compton.
Well, Wilmington at the time, in the 80s, when gangs were at all-time high, the crack epidemic was going on, Wilmington was not only a SA hood, but also a Blood hood.
Okay.
So I was used to hanging
so
around
you grew up with
Bloods.
Bloods.
Yes.
Okay.
So meeting Hi-C for the first time and finding out he was a Blood was like this. I'm at Steve's stand at the Roadium. Some guy comes and he has dookie braids. And he says, Steve, is Tony A here? And Steve goes, no, he's not here yet. But I was standing right there, and I was like, okay, I said, who's that? And he goes, it's a guy named Hi-C. He's a Blood. He's from Compton. He's from Treetop, Pyru. I don't know. His voice is kind of like Eazy-E, but we need somebody to rap. Maybe you should go back there and talk to him. So I walked back there, and I said, hey, what's up? You Hi-C? And he goes like, yeah. I go, I'm Tony A. And he goes, you're Tony A? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, for real? And I go, I bet you didn't think I was Mexican, huh? And he said, nah.
Because nobody knew who everybody was, right? Nobody had faces. Nobody knew.
Right.
Yeah.
So I invited him over to my house. I remember he drove up in an El Camino, a white El Camino with like green, what do you call it? Like pinstripes. And he had Outstanding in the back and dookie braid, crazy like glasses. And he rapped for me. And I didn't think he was that good. So I told Steve, I don't think he's that good. But one day he asked me, hey, I'm performing at my school. Would you DJ for me? Okay, cool. I went. Centennial High School in Compton, all Bloods. Okay. And I'll tell you, he impressed me because I saw his engagement with the crowd at such a young age.
Okay.
So I told Steve, let's go with him. To fast forward, when I started DJing for those guys, we did face a lot of hostility. And the number one question was always this: hey, man, is Quik a real Blood? They would pull me aside. They wouldn't ask them, but they would ask me. True story, we were in Sacramento, and there was a guy after the show, follows us back to the hotel room, and he's like with 3 dudes. And he catches up to me, goes, hey, man, let me talk to you. I saw you up on stage with Quik and those guys. He goes, is Quik a real blood? And I said, well, when you see him, just ask him yourself, bro. I just wanted to get away from him because I knew the guy was already faded.
Yeah.
I get in the elevator, I go upstairs, and I tell Quik, hey, bro, don't go downstairs, bro. There's a bunch of guys out there, and they're asking about you. Believe it or not, later on, we heard pop, pop, pop. Like, not too long after I told him that.
Yeah.
I go back downstairs. He must have asked the wrong guy because he was laid out, bro. So we did face a lot of hostility, bro.
Yeah,
We got water bottles thrown at us. In Texas, they shot it in the air at us. They made it seem like they were shooting at us. So a lot of times we didn't get to perform because of that.
Damn.
Yeah, bro.
Those are tough roads. That's why I had to ask you, because I know those were some different times back then.
Yes.
And it was the beginning of the West Coast stepping outside of the West.
Yes.
And, you know, some people were gang related, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it was just, you know, it was stuff going on. And I always knew that Quik and his group always like had issues, you know what I mean? Because they were like I said, there wasn't like Bloods out there like that doing it. Pyru's doing it like that.
Right.
So, and then they were blowing up, you know what I mean? I also want to ask you, Tony, how did you decide like Hi-C instead of just being Hi-C? How did that become Hi-C and Tony A? Because that was the beginning, I want to say, of like some, you know, black and brown, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Kind of when you see the album cover and everything, it was kind of like, it was the beginning of kind of seeing something like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
How did that happen? Like you getting with him, Hi-C and Tony A?
I always thought it was just going to be Hi-C. I thought maybe I might DJ for him when he performs or whatnot. But keep in mind that he would ask me, I really want to be on your mixtape. So I said, okay, Eazy and them are traveling now. They're on tour. I really had nobody to rap on my mixtapes. So I said, let's start with him. Mm-hmm. I remember his first mixtape, he rapped the Funky Comodina. So Steve said, let's do an original song. I had the ultimate breaks and beats. So what I did one time, I had the Newmark mixer with a sampler on it where you could sample a bar. So I sampled, I believe, Substitution. So I grabbed I'm Your Puppet and I just started writing it over that beat.
The beat, okay.
Hi-C picks up the mic and he just starts rapping to it. Steve Yano walks in and he hears that and he says, let's go with that. I didn't know what to do. Let's lay down the bottom beat. We'll write that over. So I literally wrote that record for like 4 minutes.
Really?
Yes, bro.
So you didn't sample the
No.
record. You actually used the record itself,
Right.
And just kept punching
because
it in.
the SP1200 doesn't sample 4 bars. You have to break it up in bar.
Pieces, yeah.
And because it was a live drummer, I couldn't get it on time with the metronome.
Right.
So I said, Steve, I'm just going to write it. Okay. So we released that tape and I said, name that Hi-C. The same way these mixtapes made me popular or got me popular, it's going to make him popular. Mm-hmm. So we end up getting pursued by Hollywood Records, which is Disney. Mm-hmm. We end up getting signed with the help of Jerry Heller and Violet Brown. So Steve said this, I'm going to make sure that both of you guys get paid. You're not going to be left out, Tony, because this started with you. You know, so I'm going to have them sign you guys as artists. And it's going to be Hi-C featuring Tony A.
Wow, okay.
I'll be honest with you, I would have been cool with just like, oh, Steve, I'll be in the background. I don't care.
Right.
You know, and he said, no, you're going to be on the album cover too, because this started with you. And Steve was always, you know, pushing that. Mm-hmm. So it was really him.
Wow.
It was really him.
Wow, that's crazy. So, and that's another thing I want to ask you. It's like you came with that direction, which I thought that it took Hi-C to like another place because it just clicked with the Hispanics very quick.
Right.
It just automatically, and he had back to back. He had the Sitting in the Park, he had the I'm Your Puppet, and then he came back with Sitting in the Park. So it just, that kind of Latino groove, but with a dope rapper that had a high pitched voice, kind of like Eazy-E, like you said. It was
right.
It was the mixture of the two. I thought just fit at the time. Did you know that? It was just an accident. You happened to use an oldie.
Honestly, Julio, when I sampled that beat on the mixer, the bottom beat, and I wrote it over, I just did it. Let me get my clown on. Let me put an oldie over a hip hop beat, rap to it. I didn't think anything of it. Okay. You know.
And so it wasn't intentional. It wasn't thought out like, hey, we're gonna hit the Hispanics. They're gonna love this. It was just something you just did, huh?
Right. Steve's the one that saw that because a lot of people don't know. Yeah, Steve's a hip hop guy, but he was really an oldies guy. So when he heard that, he thought it was different. So he said, we're going to do that, man. We're going to do that. He told me like this.
Why do you think Steve was so like that? Why was he so like open to like this music like that being, what was he? Was he Japanese?
Japanese,
yeah. Japanese. Why was he so into this like this?
You know, it's funny because my brother my brother would always ask him the same question. First of all, he grew up in Whittier, so he grew up among raza, but he just loved oldies. So my brother said, Steve, are you Japanese or are you just a sleepy-ass Mexican? So he goes, I'm a sleepy-ass Mexican. But he loved the Mexican culture. He loved the Mexican food. My mom would always cook for him. But when we did that, Julio, I have to be honest, I didn't think, I'm Not Your Puppet, Sin in the Park was next. I didn't think they were going to go anywhere.
Really?
I just said, we're going to put them on the mixtapes. We're going to sell them. I'm going to make $200. These tapes are for the homies in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's it. But when they came to the Swap Meet and said, we're looking for the guy who's rapping on these mixtapes, Hi-C, I was like, what the hell? And Steve's like, yeah, man. He goes, they're interested.
I want to ask you also, I know that on that album you produced some songs and then you had different producers. You had DJ Quik produce a few songs on there. What was that like working with Quik and watching him? Because you're watching him in his early times where he's developing like basically his sound that we hear today. And he kind of started like Dre, sampling a lot of funk stuff, and then eventually just moved on into like playing his own stuff. But I mean, you caught him at that early time.
Right.
What was it like working with him?
Well, I'll tell you what, the album was pretty much done, but there were 3 songs on there that the company did not want to clear. They said, we have a deadline, we need to finish. So Crawford, the Hi-C, said, I'm just going to call in Quik, he'll knock some tracks out. So I was fine with it. Now, watching him work, I thought I was starting to get pretty good at the SP1200, but this guy was on a whole different other level, bro. He literally knew how to work every damn button on the SP12. Now me, Dre taught me how to use the SP12. Jinx taught me how to use the SP12. Quik gave me his whole library to the SP12. Okay, and I still have it.
Wow.
And so what happened was when I saw him on the SP12, I think that's what really impressed me about it. I was really, really intimidated by him. And then he was already mixing back then. Like he had the ears.
He had the sonics. He understood the sonic part of it.
Dude, like
that's why I was asking you how it was with him early in the early days, because like the guy really got a lot of things off. Like, well, you got to give him his respect. Like that first album, he came out of nowhere. Nobody knew who he was.
Yeah.
And Eazy and them was popping, and he just went boom, and he just dropped. And he when he hit the streets, that record hit the streets. That first album. So that's what I say. And then Hi-C and them. So you started catching him like when he's already Second N None and all this kind of stuff going on. So that's why I always wondered how it was watching him work.
I learned, I think, a lot more from him using the SP12, but Dre's the one that taught me how to sample, how to get a good level, the basic stuff. So I can say that I learned from the best.
Right.
You know.
And then you were around like some really dope dudes. You're like around Second N None and Quik and AMG and I mean that must have been amazing, especially at that time, because they were on. They were like they were hot. I gotta give Second N None their props too. They don't get enough respect for what they've added to the game, because they brought a lot of that harmony stuff. This is before Bone Thugs. They were bringing that whole singing thing, and the way they did it was like unique to them. You know what I mean? That's why I always love Second N None, because they have their own unique sound to them.
Yes.
How was it working with all these different guys, man?
Well, working with AMG, I remember he produced his album. A lot of people think that Quik produced that record.
No, it's him.
Yeah, he did it.
He's very talented.
Very, very. Even today, he's
a lot of people don't know that he produced, because I broke that record from the Fixers. And a lot of people didn't know. They thought that was DJ Quik's beat, but that wasn't.
Can you work with that?
Can you work with that? Can you work with that? That's AMG. Shout out to AMG Production, yeah.
Absolutely. So with him, he would tell me, oh, that bitch better have my money with a sample, a kick, a snare, and a shaker. And I was like, that's it? He gave me the floppy. I still have that floppy at home, you know? But working, like Second N None, the thing about them is that they don't get enough credit. Many times, it wasn't that they did it on the 1200, but that they would tell Quik, we got this sample, break it down for us.
Okay.
And he would break it down. So a lot of times they would want to get credit for like, well, that was our idea, you know, but a lot of times we can kind of be splitting hairs on who produced what, but Quik produced Second N None and his own record and produced 3 songs on our record. But it was amazing working, especially watching Second N None do their singing, especially on our song, Leave My Curls Alone, which was our 3rd single. When I saw them, leave my curls alone. And man, those guys were professionals at teenagers.
Tony, I also wanted to ask you about the album that you did with Hi-C.
Yeah.
Who came up with the name Scandalous?
That word was used on our streets and in Compton at the time. And we were always saying like, oh, that bitch is scandalous right there. Oh,
so you guys were saying that back then?
Yes,
huh?
We were saying it back then. So when the album came out, we said, we're just going to call it Scandalous because that's what this album is. A bunch of scandalous shit on here. So we came up, I don't want to call it Scandalous or Scanlist. We got to find somewhere. So we call it Scan, then SKANLESS. So that's what we decided, Scandalous.
Yeah. I always tripped out on that. I was like, damn, I guess that's why you were ahead of your time, because that's what we're talking about in the streets.
Yes.
But like I said, it got more popularized a little bit later, but you guys were very early on it. You know what I mean?
That's what we decided, because, there was a bunch of stuff on there, because I always say I told Crawford, I feel like that album was like dirty comedy on wax. So we thought it was Scandalous.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. And it's funny you say that too, Tony, because we were talking about, you were just saying, the difference in time. Why do you think people were so talented back then? Like, you would find like the Second N None and AMG. I mean, just because, you just around all these great people.
Right.
Why do you think it was so like that back then?
I'm glad you asked that question, and this is what I think, okay? So if anybody who watches this is just my opinion. This is just what I think. I was there. I think because we had less to work with. We had to get more creative. I'll give an example, the SP1200. Yeah. We had a 10-second drum machine that cost us $2,500. When Dre turned it on for me, he said, each pad is 2.5 seconds. He said, you only have 10 seconds, you're going to have to get creative. And I remember that's what he told me. And I said, okay, cool, no problem. I think we had less, we had to get more creative. Today, we have more. And I think music got dumbed down. In my opinion, some people will tell me today, oh, get with the times, old man. Let me just name some classic albums that were done on a SP1200. Eazy-E's album, NWA album, Michelet album, the DOC album, Above the Law album, JJ Fat album, DJ Quik's first album, Hi-C's first album, AMG's first album, Second N None's first album. No Vaseline was done on an SP1200.
Melo Mayonnaise Mentirosa 1200, La Raza was SP1200.
And let's just be honest, at that time we were broke.
Yeah.
So we were hungry. When people make it and they blow up on their first album, I think they lose that hunger, and the majority of the time their second album is whack.
Yeah, it's true.
So I like working with hungry people.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Roadium Radio, because you've had a lot of success with that. How did that come about, and how did you get started on even the idea of doing like, okay, I want to do like Roadium Radio? Because you kind of just started it. I remember you just popped up, and I remember because of the name, I noticed it off the top. I said, oh, Roadium Radio, oh, that Tony, okay.
Yes. Well, I did it in remembrance of Steve. Okay. And when I found out Steve passed away, Steve Yano, here's how I found out. My boy Wiz1 from the Black Forest crew sent me a screenshot that Redmatic from the Beat Junkies had posted up, rest in peace, Steve Yano. So when I got it, I'm like, what the hell? So I called up his wife. She already knew who it was. She picked up. She said, Tony, it's true. She told me the whole story, how he passed away. So I thought, what can I do to a man that means so much to me? Other than my mother and my father, he was probably the closest person closest to me. What can I do so that his name will not get lost in West Coast hip hop history? So I met a guy on Instagram. He told me he films videos. I had lunch with them the next day, and I said, would you be interested in doing like a 30-minute documentary? That's what I thought, a 30-minute. Had another buddy, had a camera. I didn't even know what kind of cameras they had. I've never directed anything. I've never edited anything. I just wanted to do something. So they said yes. So I started calling Clientele, Lonzo, Arabian Prince, Mr. Cartoon, everybody that knew Steve. And we started interviewing them. I didn't know Julio was going to take me a year to film it. I didn't know it was going to take me a year to edit it because I didn't know what I was doing. So here comes 2019. I'm thinking old school because I'm working at the time. So I'm funding all this with my money. I said, what do I do? How do I release it? Do I buy an ad in a newspaper? Do I put it in a magazine? Do I buy a bus stop? People started telling me, no, put it on YouTube. So I want to say at the beginning of 2019, I literally, Julio, started begging people, hey, man, would you give me an interview? So I'm gone 15 years. Nobody knows who Tony A is.
Right.
Bro, I just want an interview. So people will give me 15-minute interviews. The majority of them were audio. So I started up a YouTube page, and I started putting clips of the up-and-coming documentary, and I just started texting it to people, the clip. I was able to get 230 subscribers, and I said, we're going live September 11th, 2019. I don't care if anybody watches, but I just want to go live just to promote the documentary. And before you know it, I started averaging 1,000 people watching every time I went live. And I remember, Julio, when I hit 10K, I told my boy, I said, bro, we were just like at 8,000 subscribers like 2 days ago, and now we're at 10.
Wow.
And he goes, no, you're gaining traction. I went into it with the pure heart of I just want to promote this documentary. So when I started realizing that there was a lot of raza rappers that weren't getting anything out there, I started, like, when a clientele would cancel, he said, get me next week, okay? I would see this guy on Instagram, this Chicano dude that I thought was dope. And I was like, hey, man,
want to come through?
You want to come do an interview?
Yeah.
Yeah. And before you know it, I saw that there was a market there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we don't have a Mexican PET, MTV, or whatever. Let me start doing it. And then some of the big names started canceling. Hey, can you reschedule me? Then I started bringing in these Terraza guys, 10, 15, 20K. And I'm like, okay, there's an audience for this. Mm. And I started opening up the platform to everybody.
Right.
So,
and you were like, to me, I mean, from my perspective of it, I felt that it was, pretty much you doing that. Like, it wasn't really nothing else going on that was like highlighting or even bringing back some guys that we heard of before, and you were bringing them back. And then it's like, oh, I never knew it, because I would watch sometimes. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this about this guy. Like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You were kind of almost like bringing it back in a way and opening the doors.
Yes.
For that. Did that help? I mean, how would I say? Did it work for you, or did it backfire on you? I mean, because I feel like sometimes I just hear these different things that they've said about you, and I'm like, damn, man, all I seen Tony do was like give y'all love, dog, like give you like a platform. So how do you feel about that?
I will say this, that is there some interviews that I regret that comes to mind? No, or I could probably lead on maybe. And I'll tell you why, because 95%, if not more, of the Chicano rappers that are out there right now, I gave them their first interview. And I will go ahead and say this, nobody knew who they were.
Right. No, I remember that. That's what I'm saying. You were giving a platform to people that didn't have that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'll give you an example. There was a young person that came in, I won't say this person's name, and they had like 2,000 followers. And I thought this person I really thought this person had potential to be something special. Mm-hmm. And I said, come on through. I want to give an interview. Okay, cool. No problem. After this person blew up because of that interview, right now they have close to 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they hit 100,000 followers on YouTube. Okay. And this person has always been very thankful and has always told me it's because of you. One of the few people. Now, when couple of years later, when other podcasters started coming around, a lot of these artists would go to their podcast, and I noticed that the host would almost kind of want to bring something negative out, because I believe the state of podcasting today, if you want numbers, you got to start beefs, you got to start drama or gossip. So they started asking him, how was it over there with Tony? Hey, oh, it was cool, man. We got drunk and we did this, we did that. Would you ever go back? It was almost like he was trying to dig something out.
Just find something, start something.
But there was a lot of people that left my platform and did say some negative things. And I'll be honest with you, the way I am, I'd call them up. Some people wouldn't answer, some people would. And they would tell me, man, I got a little drunk and he got it out of me, but my apologies. It's all good.
How do you go from here? What do you do from here, Tony? What is your plans with Roadium Radio? Like, you said you kind of burned on it a little bit.
Yes.
But I don't know. I don't think you should stop doing it. I think it's an important platform. Right. I think it's a very important platform.
Well, I'm still going to, as of right now, I'm giving myself another year, Julio. I took almost 6 months off.
Okay.
And people were like, Tony, come back, Tony, come back, Tony, come back. So I don't do it for views. I don't do it for monetization. Nobody's going to get rich off of monetization unless you're Joe Rogan or Club Shay Shay.
Okay.
Okay. I do it because I love music. Yeah. And I love talking rap. Okay. And if I do it, as of right now, I'm scheduling one more year. And I'm only going to do it maybe once a week. But the one that I'm really excited for, that I have another podcast called Freaky Tales, which is all about paranormal.
Okay.
And that one I really do like. We take live calls, and we get calls from everywhere. People giving us their freaky tales, stories, paranormal stories. I had a dog that was demon possessed. I saw a UFO. Man, those are very entertaining to me. That's what I'm doing there. I want to do a lot more filming. I want to do more editing. And I just recently, again, got back into cutting and scratching. I was blending for a while, but cutting and scratching, I want to get back into
Always
it.
Fun.
I'm 57 years old. I can't wait to turn 60, and I still want to be cutting.
You're killing it. I'd be saying the same thing. I'm trying to get my shoulder back together. Once I get it back together, we're gonna get to it. If you had to go back, Tony, and then, let's say you had to start over from the beginning, what advice would you give yourself, like from the top of, like, let's say Roadium Radio? If you had to do it all over again, what would you have done different?
I would have told myself, don't trust so quickly.
Okay.
Keep your circle very, very small because those that betray you are the ones that are in your circle.
Okay.
That's what I would tell myself because I've had team members that when things weren't working out and they were warned and then they were asked to leave, they were the first ones to run to the internet. And I never fire back, and I don't really care to because I believe my character speaks for itself. But I would say be very, very slow to trust and keep your circle small.
If you had to go back and tell yourself from the beginning with the music business, what would you have told yourself to do different, or would you have changed anything?
Learn the music business because I never took the time. I made a lot of good money, Julio, but I didn't have the business mentality to invest.
Yeah, none of us did. It's true.
Because I always thought it was going to just keep coming.
For sure.
And I never did, bro. Yeah. And I know people that make good money, cool money, and invest. And those people are smart, man.
Yeah.
Those people are smart.
Yeah.
So.
We're not taught all that stuff, though. It's kind of difficult to be hard on yourself about it. You know what I mean? You have to kind of be around other people, too, and really. But I always tell people the same thing. If I go back, I would tell myself to read, Music Business for Dummies. And then that'll help you. Before you even try to even make a song, I would tell you to do that. That'll be my advice. Same thing, you know what I mean? What do you feel about music today, Tony?
Julio, we're older men. We like good music.
True.
We like good rap. I just don't think today there's nothing good.
Yeah.
Okay. I could probably name you one artist that I like. I really like.
Yeah.
I like Kendrick Lamar. Yeah. I really do. Other than that, I'm not saying that the people out there are whack. It's just not my cup of tea. I mean, I'm still bumping Love's Gonna Get You. I'm still bumping MC Breed. I'm still bumping Quik. I'm still bumping NWA's second album. That's just me. I love funk. I love oldies. I love classical music. I love soundtracks. I just don't like today's music. So
and it's the good thing about it is that it actually, like you just said, I've noticed that a lot of people are going back to our music, you know what I mean? Because I think there's more consistency in it, and I think it's fresh for a lot of people because everything is so redundant today.
Yes.
You kind of hear the same thing over and over. That's where I feel like I kind of get burned out. I was very happy to see that there was a lot of like older rappers that have dropped some really good records, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I've been entertained by that. Like Lil Wayne just dropped a great record that I like. Slick Rick just dropped a record I was listening to the other day. Redman dropped a record that I love a lot. Common and Pete Rock did I thought Common and Pete Rock's record was the album of the year, if you ask me. Yeah, very good record. Nas has dropped a nice series with Hit Boy. I mean, they're still out there, Fat Joe dropped a good record. He got caught up in that N-word situation or whatever, and it kind of overshadowed his record, but his record was actually really good. Yeah. And that was too bad, too. I felt bad for him that he got kind of caught up in that whole thing. But like the older rappers are doing some really good stuff because they got it. They still got the craft, and and I enjoy it because I like rhyming. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. I enjoy that. Last time I was on your show, we were at the end. And I asked you at that time, because now it's more talked about today, but at that time, I think I might have been a little bit ahead of the curve, but I was asking you, what did you feel about Mexicans using the N-word? Right. And then we had remember the whole thing cut off on us. Yes. And so we never really ended that conversation about that. And I want to ask you to end this interview. I was curious what you felt about that.
Mexicans using the N-word, we shouldn't be talking like that. We shouldn't be using it. Okay. I know people say, and I understand it, when they say, well, I was raised around blacks. We all were. Mm-hmm. I was, you were.
Yeah, for sure.
I just don't talk like that. And I'll tell you why, because my black friends find it offensive. I'm not going to offend them. They don't say the WB word to me. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that it's for us. And today's generation uses it more, especially Raza, uses it more than blacks. Oh, yeah. So now I know there's some black people that have said, oh, y'all can use it. Y'all were raised with us. Right. I wish you wouldn't say that because I'm one of these people that says to our people, don't use it. But when one of you guys gives them a pass, now they're like, okay, who do I listen to? Right. But I don't believe that we should be using that word.
Thank you, Tony. I'm glad we got to finish that question because we got cut off on the podcast when I did it. I went on Roadium Radio.
If I can just add one last thing before we cut it out. You asked me, what would you say to your younger self when you were podcasting and then when you were DJing? Mm-hmm. I just want to add one last thing, okay? Mm-hmm. What would you say to yourself as a teenager? And honestly, I'm going to say this with all my heart, bro. Tony, listen to your mom. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So absolutely. Exactly. That's so true because the elders know, bro. And as much as we want to fight it and you don't know, but it's not your time. You old. And I look back on some of the stuff my mom used to tell me. She's like, man, she was so on point.
Yes.
You learn to shut up and learn to listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you coming on Westside Radio, man. It's always been cool to talk to you, man. You've done some great work, man. I admire what you're doing, and I want to see Roadium Radio continue. I don't want you to stop doing it.
Thank you,
I want you to stay focused on it and keep doing it, because I think that platform is very important for our people. You know what I mean?
Yes. Can I give a couple of shout outs?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to give a shout out to all the Roadium Radio fans.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give a shout out to my son, B. Scandalous, and also to my friend, Alex, who has been helping me tremendously a lot lately. So
Cool.
And to you, Julio, Westside Radio, all the way live, my brother.
That's right. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for coming.
What's up, y'all? This is the Thug Lord Tupac. Be sure to check out Westside Radio.